Hey everybody, Annie Meller here, once again with Ivory Becker of Incite Strategies, and today we are talking about her software, Credit Score Pro AI, which if you're like me and you don't know anything about AI, this is going to be a great class. So Ivory, let's learn about your software.
Sure. So Credit Score Pro AI is considered a full-service credit management system. So what I really mean by that is a user is able to access their credit reports from Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, so all three credit bureaus. And from there, our AI does an analysis. It determines what accounts are negative and are adversely impacting the credit score. And then the AI actually reads the raw data credit file and comes up with disputes that are based on finding errors and issues with the credit report.
Oh, so that's interesting because I don't know which accounts, if any, would need to be disputed. So it's sort of doing that digging for you.
Right. It's doing that digging for you. And what's important to understand about a raw data credit file is essentially when you get a credit report from a provider, you're seeing what that vendor wants you to see.
Okay.
But behind the scenes, there's a massive amount of data. And some of it you're not going to see on the report, right?
Okay.
It's not necessary for you to see it.
Sure.
So a 10-page credit report could have, let's say, 500 pages of raw data. So that's a lot of opportunity to find errors. And errors need to be removed or corrected on a credit report
Okay.
for it to be compliant. So because the AI is able to identify and find so much more opportunity than what we can with our naked eye, it allows for a higher success rate in removing negative information that's non-compliant from the credit reports.
Is this tool, so if I were to get this, would I be using it by myself, or is it sort of you should have somebody like you working alongside you to like help you use that?
The beauty of it is it's meant for anyone to be able to use it.
Okay.
We wanted to remove the necessity of having to have an expert to help with your credit. So a mortgage loan officer can have their client use it, or a consumer can go directly to the website and use the software as well. What's really nice is all you do is sign up for the credit monitoring, and then from there you click a button
Okay.
and that's pretty much it. So a couple clicks of a button, AI is going to create the disputes, and you can choose to either print the disputes and mail them yourself to the bureaus, or just let us do it for you.
That is really convenient. Who would you recommend uses this? Like, who would you say is your normal audience?
Sure. So the general public uses the software. In addition, we have partnered with nonprofit organizations, mortgage companies, and banks as well. So in those uses of the platform, what they're able to do is sign their clients up or their consumers up, monitor what they're doing. So when it's time, when their scores are high enough, they can move forward with the lending process.
Oh, that's exciting. So, okay, I know in the lending space, when, say, I pull the credit report, they have a little tool that's a what if scenario kind of thing. How would you compare these two things? Or maybe there is no comparison. I'm not sure.
Sure. So the disputes are just part of the process, right? When it comes to managing your credit, you want to know, how can I most effectively impact the credit score algorithm? So part of the software goes beyond the disputes, and it's goal-based. So a user would say, let's say my goal is to buy a house.
Okay.
I'm going to choose that goal. And then from there, the AI is going to read the credit report and come up with a credit action plan tailored towards that goal, tailored toward the algorithm that's used in mortgage lending versus, let's say, the credit scores that are used in auto lending. So when we compare it to the simulator tool, it really goes beyond what a simulator can provide. The simulator is a what if. Sometimes it comes up with results that actually aren't beneficial to a client, which is interesting.
I could believe, I mean, because I've seen sort of that blanket, like, well, if I pay off this account and that account, this could happen. I mean, obviously, it's not a guarantee that's going to happen.
We've seen the what if simulators spit out scenarios where it says to pay less than the minimum payment on a student loan.
What?
That would result in a delinquency, right?
That's wild.
So it doesn't always function like it should. And with our AI credit action plan, it's also looking at not just what's already on the credit report and how do we optimize the good accounts that exist, but what's not on the credit report that could be added to the report to positively influence the algorithm. So, do you need to open a credit card? Did your credit card become stale, meaning did it become inactive? And it will say, hey, your credit card's inactive. We need you to make a purchase of this much. Because when that credit card becomes stale, it's not positively factoring into the credit score algorithm anymore. Or it may say you need to add rent onto your credit report. It will boost your score this much, right? There's all these options that are just dependent on that client's goal.
I know both loan officers and consumers, we all could use a little more education when it comes to this. How would this tool help them?
Sure. So we have a coaching section. It's called credit coaching. The point of the credit coaching section is to make sure that everyone understands how credit works, from the differences of a Vantage credit score, like what you see on Credit Karma, to a FICO credit score and how those scores function, all the way to what makes up a credit report. How do I read a credit report? What myths exist? So really dispelling the fiction that we see a lot of times on social media. And then it goes into how do I reestablish credit if I've had credit damage, or how do I establish credit if I have no credit history, and everything in between.
So if I were in there and I'm like, well, and it tells me you should add an account to boost your credit score, does it explain why that would boost it?
Yes, it does explain in a small sentence why it will boost the scores. But if you want more detailed explanations, that's when they're going to go to the credit coaching section and go to the rebuilding section, which is going to highlight the why behind every rebuilding option that's provided.
I'm just interested as a thought experiment here of how this works and how that is truly a benefit to the borrower and maybe even to the lender to be able to explain why these things are working. Because what I could see is somebody having this tool like on a personal, and they then bring their lender into that space and they can have a conversation around that.
Right, exactly. And we have a partnership program, and then we have a program where mortgage companies or the banks will use our software and brand it as their own. Either way, that mortgage loan officer or banker, et cetera, is able to see what's going on the client side.
Wow. I like the use of this tool from the stance of if I were working with somebody, and while I'm not a credit repair specialist and I can't hold myself out to be that, this tool is that thing, and it's something that they can use on their own, but again provides you that foundation to have those conversations.
Right. It's meant to provide accessibility for managing credit effectively. And a user doesn't have to have credit damage, right? Because it's going beyond just that credit damage. We've had users who are in credit scores of the low 800s, and the action plan is still finding ways to create higher score boosts. You know, it's not going to be a 50-point score boost, but it is going to find smaller boosts. So it's about how do I continue to maintain a strong credit score as well, and not lose those points I've gained. And the action plan is going to automatically update every month when there's a new credit report available as well. And it's similar with the dispute side. So once a new report's available, the AA automatically does an analysis on it, comes up with a new strategy for the dispute process for the negative information, and then updates the action plan. So if some steps have already been followed, then the next most important steps replace what's already been completed.
Now that's really interesting because I mean, say you have somebody who comes in who doesn't have a credit score, you know, they're new to this space, or maybe even a student who all they have is loans, like, and a lot of them, mind you, a lot of them, but to get an idea of how credit works and like have that educational system built in there. No, I think that's great. So how quickly are people seeing results when they're using this?
Sure. So as far as timelines go, in 4 months, we're seeing what's typically done in traditional credit repair in about 8 months to a year.
I mean, in the timeline of what is life and getting a loan and a mortgage, which is a 30-year product, as we know, I mean, that's really quick.
Yes. 4 months for a complete credit turnaround is pretty unheard of.
This all really does sound incredible and like a nice tool to add to, you know, the repertoire of tools we already have out there. Can I ask you about the pricing?
Sure, sure. So, one of the most important things to us was making this accessible. One of the difficulties we find for people who have credit challenges is being able to afford good credit help, and then even finding good credit help is difficult.
Yeah.
So, what we've done is we've actually made the AI free. So, it's a completely free platform with the exception that they do have to pay to access their credit report with our partner, Smart Credit.
Well, and we know credit reports are not very inexpensive anymore, but even that all being said, having access to a tool that can explain it to you and break it down into basic language, I mean, I think that's a great deal for anybody out there.
Yeah, the nice thing is the pricing is not what you're seeing on the mortgage side when it comes to getting credit reports. It's like half the cost.
That's good news. And I do love that it's a benefit to people in that you had that in mind as far as making it affordable and accessible. Thank you, Ivory, for coming in, teaching us about your software and what's out there. One last question, though. Where can we find you?
So if you're interested in checking out Credit Score Pro AI or learning how you can partner and use the software, you can visit us online at creditscorepro.ai.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much. And thank you guys for joining us today. We'll see you next time.